Hey guys, welcome to Friday Reads. My name is Juan. I hope you're all doing very well. Today I'm here to, I don't know what I said. Did I say welcome to Friday Reads? Welcome to Bookish Islander. Today it's Friday, so I'm here to do Friday Reads, which is the video in which I catch up with the books that I've been reading so far this week. I do this every Friday, so watch out for Friday Reads. So let me just tell you about the books that I've been reading this week. Actually, let me begin by telling you about the books that I finished reading this week. And the first book that I definitely wanted to talk to you about today is The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. This was a book that won the Booker Prize for the best novel of the year in 2013, and it was a struggle for me to get through it. It's a much beloved novel. If you go back a couple of years, or a few years back, you will find a lot of videos from booktubers talking about this book and heaping praise upon it. I watched all those videos years ago, so The Luminaries was on my radar. I wanted to read it. I really wanted to read it. I thought I would love it. It's a novel written in the style of a Victorian novel, even though it was written in the 21st century. I was really disappointed. I picked up this book only because I'm doing my Booker Through the Decades project. And in case you don't know about that project, what it is, it's I read every single Booker Prize winning novel in the history of the Booker Prize. Luckily, the Booker Prize only started in 1969, so there aren't that many novels to read, and I've already read a few of them, although I will reread the novels that I've already read. Anyway, I decided to start this project by reading the novels that won in the current decade, so not quite 10 books yet. I mean, this year there's going to be a winner announced a couple of weeks from now. Isn't that exciting? Will it be the Testaments? Will it be the Ducks book? I don't know. I have no idea. I've never really followed the Booker Prize. This is my first attempt to be part of the Booker Prize, was doing this project. Anyway, so I picked up The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. I started reading it. It's a chunker, which doesn't help. I think it needs to be a chunker. I think that's fine. Okay, I didn't like the book. Maybe I should have told you that at the end, because now you're gonna think, well, you're just gonna say bad things about it. Well, actually, I'm not. I think the book, it's a towering achievement, a towering literary achievement. I think she was trying to do something. When I say she, I mean Eleanor Catton, the author. This was her second novel, which is also remarkable. I haven't read her first. And she was trying to do something, and I think she does it really well. I think she was trying to do something, she was trying to create a book that was both, or would work both as a parody of a Victorian novel and at the same time would read as a Victorian novel. So it was sending up the thing while also being the thing. And that is really hard to achieve. And she does it. It works perfectly on those both aspects of it, both being a parody and both being a great Victorian novel. So whether you want something that kind of makes fun of quote-unquote Victorian novels, let me stop here because I'm getting really nervous that my battery's gonna run out, so I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that, I'm back now. So yeah, The Luminaries, didn't enjoy it, didn't love it. Would I recommend it? Yes, I would definitely recommend it, because whether you want a book, and I think this is what I was saying before I got rudely interrupted by my battery issues, whether you want to read a book that reads like a Victorian novel because you really love Victorian novels, you can't get enough of them. You know, Victorian novels are not a genre, by the way, but you specifically like mystery novels, okay, set in the Victorian period, or written rather in the Victorian period, and you think, you know, you've already read all of them, so where do you go? There aren't going to be any more produced. Well, Eleanor Catton made one. So it's not a novel set, it's not just a novel set in the Victorian period. It is a Victorian novel, but written in the 21st century. So if you like that, go read it, because I think you would really enjoy it. If you want to read something a little bit meta, something that sends up the mystery novel from Victorian times, then you should also read it and you would enjoy it. Unfortunately, I'm not into any of that. Everything that Catton does, and she does it masterfully well, was completely wasted on me. Now, you might think that because I finished The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton this week, I probably didn't have time to finish any more books, but then it's because you don't know me and you don't know what I'm capable of. I actually read or finished reading 2 novels and read a short story this week. So let me tell you first about the short story because I'm really excited about it. I read The Geometry of Love by John Cheever. And if you don't know John Cheever, if you've never read any of his short stories, you should do that right now. I'm currently going through his book of short stories, which is a collection of all the short stories he ever published, and a lot of them came out on The New Yorker. This one didn't. The New Yorker actually rejected The Geometry of Love, which was then, I believe, picked up by the Saturday Post. And it's amazing. Apparently the New Yorker wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. They thought it was a terrible story. I think it's an amazing story. I think it's the best portrayal of a loveless marriage that I have ever read. And that's saying a lot because literary fiction is full of portrayals of loveless marriages. I won't tell you much about the story. I'll just say that the protagonist is an engineer who's in a loveless marriage, and we get his interactions with his wife, which are very strange but very telling. And actually, if you think about it, they're not that strange. What they denote is just that there is absolutely no love in that marriage. Or, I mean, definitely the wife doesn't love the husband at all. So he decides to use geometry to try to understand human relationships, not just his own, but also his friends. He's an engineer, so that makes sense to him. He's actually trying to make sense out of something that would never make sense, something like love. The Geometry of Love by John Cheever. Now, I'm reading this book. I'm reading the best, or rereading in some cases, some of his best known stories. I've Googled John Cheever best short stories, and I'm getting different lists and different opinions, and I'm prioritizing the short stories that come up more often. But then I thought, why not use my channel to ask for suggestions? So if you're watching this and you're a big John Cheever fan, or even if you're not a fan but you've read some stories by him that have meant a lot to you, that you really like, please let me know in the comment section down below, because I would prioritize those two. The idea is to read every single short story he ever written, but I want to prioritize the best ones, obviously. So please let me know. And also, if you've read The Geometry of Love, let's talk about it, because it's such a fascinating story. There's so much to unpack in just a few pages. And the other two books that I finished this week are in Spanish, so I'll talk about them real quick because I don't want you to click away. So the first one was La Barraca, or The Cabin, by Valencian writer Blasco Ibáñez. I read this because there was a total blackout in Tenerife on Sunday, so I picked it up because I was bored, and I read it through Sunday afternoon and even into the evening, to the point that I only realized that we had electricity back when it got too dark to read it, and so I turned the light on and it worked. But at that point I had been struggling for about an hour with very little sunlight. I was so into the book that I didn't even care about the blackout. And then I couldn't finish it on Sunday. That was a little bit crazy. But then on Sunday evening I picked it up again and I finished it. And actually Buddy read this with my boyfriend, which was a great experience. Has made us now do more buddy reads. So I'm currently doing another buddy read with him, which I'll talk about later on in this video. And the other Spanish language book that I finished was Nadie Nada Nunca, which I'm sure that even if you don't speak a word of Spanish, you would understand what that title means, but just in case, I'll translate it literally. Nadie, no one, nada, nothing, nunca, never. So that's a title. So it's a little bit about it's a little bit like Seinfeld in that it's a novel about nothing. It's nothing to do with Seinfeld. It's actually rural Argentina. One day, a horse turns up dead, and then horses keep getting killed, and nobody knows what's happening. There are a lot of rumors. The media is also involved in speculation, as they are wont to do. And that's the novel. It's by the late Argentinian writer Juan José Saer. I have no idea whether this novel has been translated into English or not, but if you can read it in Spanish, I don't know if I would recommend it. It was a little bit challenging, that being about nothing thing. Juan José Saer, however, is a writer that I'm fascinated by. I want to read a lot more by him. I have a list of his best known and most critically acclaimed novels. I want to get through them. So it's a writer that I want to talk about more. I want to know more about. So watch out if you're interested, because I would talk more about him in the future. Unfortunately, I don't think this was the best novel to begin with. That's why I'm going back and reading his best known novels instead of some more obscure ones like this one. However, I enjoyed it. I think he was probably a literary genius. So there will be more about him and about his books on this channel. But now let me tell you about the books that I'm currently reading. So If you live on planet Earth and you have an internet connection and you watch videos about books on YouTube, you would know that October is Victober, or as Adam from Memento Mori on Twitter called it, White History Month. Anyway, it is a month in which we read Victorian novels and Victorian books, and it's all about the Victorian period, etc, etc, etc. So I made a TBR. This is the first year that I take part, which is, which makes sense because I didn't have my booktube channel last year. So I decided to read a few books from the Victorian period, some very well-known books. I made a TBR, go check it out if you haven't. The first book, or the book that I really want to read in Victober, the book that I'm using Victober as an excuse so I can finally finish, because I've been trying to read it for 20 years, is Middlemarch. I started Middlemarch last week and I'm making steady progress. I'm already about 20-something% into it. I'm sorry I'm reading it as an ebook, so I don't have a pretty copy to show you. But yeah, I love it. The problem is that I've already read this 20%, 30% many times before. So the goal is to keep going, make it to 50%, make it to 60%, make it to 80, 90, 100%, and finish it before the end of the month. That's my goal. I know I'm gonna love it. Everybody loves Middlemarch. Everybody loves George Eliot, and I want to be part of that particular club. But I'm also reading a surprise book this Victober. I'm reading the Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens. And that's a surprise book because I did not mention it on my TBR. And I didn't mention it on my TBR because when I filmed my TBR, I had no idea that I was gonna read it. This is a buddy read that I'm doing with two fellow booktubers and a booktube commenter. The booktubers are Sarah from Hardcover Hearts and Leo from A Little Book Life, and the commenter is Amelia Reeds, that you might be familiar with because she always leaves thoughtful comments, not just on my channel, but also on other channels. So the three of us, sorry, not the three of us, the four of us, can I count? Yeah. Counting me, there's 4 people. So we're reading the Pickwick Papers. They selected it, I just jumped in. I don't know why they chose the Pickwick Papers, actually I haven't asked them. And I decided to jump in because it sounded like fun. I haven't done that many buddy reads with other booktubers, and it's something that I really want to get into. I think it would be an enriching experience. I'm not a Charles Dickens fan, I've only read a couple of his books. So I thought that a buddy read would be a good thing for me to get on board and read Charles Dickens. So at least I can say, well, I don't like Charles Dickens because this, and that, instead of right now saying, well, I don't like Charles Dickens, but I haven't read much by him, so I don't know why I don't like him, I've read very little of the Pickwick Papers so far. I have to catch up with it on the weekend because we're doing a catch-up. The buddy read catches up on Sunday. Anyway, you don't need to know any of that. But the point is that I need to read a certain number of chapters, and I've only read the first 2 or 3 chapters so far. It's been difficult for me to get into it. I don't know, but I have to keep reading it so I know what I feel about it. I don't have much to say about it so far, so I'm sorry about that. But hopefully next week, next Friday Reads, I'll have more to say about the Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens. And the third book that I'm reading this month, or that I started this week rather, it's La Región Más Transparente by Carlos Fuentes. And look at this gorgeous cover. This is actually a special edition. It's a bit of a chunker. It has a couple of articles in here, so this is not it's the novel plus some other writing about the novel and about the author. So in case you don't know, Carlos Fuentes is it's the most important, or one of the most important Mexican writers of the 20th century. This is his first novel, which was published in the late 50s. It's all about the history of Mexico and what happened in the generations after the Mexican Revolution of the early on in the century, in English, in case you're interested. Yeah, this book is available in English and in other languages, and the title in English is Where the Air is Clear, which is more or less a literal translation of the title. I think the title sounds a lot better in English, and it's not hard to see what it means, even if you just have a very basic knowledge of Spanish, because the 2 main words here are very similar in most other Indo-European languages, even in English. So, you know, it's challenging, it's very difficult to get into it because it's very experimental, it's very fragmentary, there are a lot of characters, a lot of voices, there doesn't seem to be a plot. There is, but at the beginning there doesn't seem to be. And I'm happy that I'm reading this with my boyfriend. This is the second buddy read that I'm doing after our success reading La Barraca together. Now we're reading this together, and we're reading it aloud to each other. We just alternate sections, so we're reading it at the same time. It's not like he has a copy and reads it and I have my copy and I read it separately. We're both reading it at the same time. He's reading it out loud to me and I'm listening, or I'm reading it and he's listening. So we do that and it's going really well. Doing it that way has made it a lot easier to understand. So I would recommend doing that, but the problem is that you would need somebody who would be willing to do it. But I guess I have a pretty cool boyfriend. Anyway, enough about that. So this is my Friday reads. Those are the books that I'm reading at the moment and the books that I finished this week. Let me know what books you are reading. Let me know what books you finished reading this week. And of course, if you want to talk about any of the books that I mentioned in this video, also let's talk about them in the comment section down below. And don't forget also to leave me your John Cheever suggestions, short stories by John Cheever that you really like. Please let me know in the comment section because I'm particularly interested in that. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again very soon. Have an amazing weekend. Bye bye.